Good morning, Year 4, and welcome to our home learning sessions again. Can I say I was really impressed with all of the work that I collected in on Friday? You are trying ever so hard. Keep up all this good work, please, and let's get on. Okay, so if we have a look at our equivalent measurements, we have 10 millimeters equals 1 centimeter. 5 millimeters is the same as 0.5 centimeters, or it could be 0.5 centimeters, or even half a centimeter. 100 centimeters is the same as 1 meter. 25 centimeters is 0.25 meters, or a quarter of a meter. 50 centimeters is 0.5 meters, or 0.5 meters, or half a meter. 1,000 meters is the same as 1 kilometer. So 500 meters is 0.5 kilometers, or 0.5 kilometers, or half a kilometer. So if I was to work out 1,500 meters, I know that 1,000 is 1 kilometer and 500 is 0.5. So 1 and 0.5 is 1.5 kilometers, or 1.5 kilometer. I then know that 3 kilometers is the same as 3 lots of 1,000 meters, which is 3,000 meters. 1,750 meters is the same as 1.75 kilometers. I would pause this now and write all of those down for future reference. Okay? Okay, so our early morning work, again, it's all about measurements and perimeter. Okay, so let's start at number 1. How many kilometers are there in 5,500 meters? So think about, partition that number. You've got 5,000 and you've got 500. So which one is it? Is it 5 kilometers? Is it 5.05 kilometers? Or is it 5.5 kilometers? Or 5.55? Look at what we've just done earlier. Then number 2, you have to calculate the perimeter of the shape. Each square is a centimeter. What shape is it? Do you need to count all the way around, or do you know something about that shape? Number 3, the perimeter of the rectangle is, and you have 2 meters and 8 meters, and you've got all the measurements there, and you've got to just add them up. Then number 4, match the shape to its perimeter. So is it 16 meters? Is it 30 meters? Is it 32 meters? Or is it 40 meters? Okay, you've got a 10 meter side and a 6 meter side. What about the other two? Number 5, Alfie cycled 6 3/4 kilometers. Asher says, I cycled 6,340 meters, so I travelled the same distance as Alfie. Is she correct? Explain why. I would convert your kilometers to meters. Okay, so pause it now and then have a good go. Okay, then let's have a look at number 1. Go through the answers. How many kilometers are there in 5,500 meters? Well, I know that there are 1,000 kilometers in 1 meter, but you've got 5,000 meters there. So I know that that is 5. And I know 500 meters is half a kilometer, or 0.5. So the answer would be 5.5 kilometers. Number 2. I can see that that shape is a square. So I know that every side is the same length. Okay, I know the top one side is 3 centimeters. So 4 multiplied by 3 is 12. So the perimeter would be 12 centimeters, or if you put 12 meters, that is okay because there is no unit of measurement. Number 3. The perimeter of the rectangle is 8 meters add 2 meters add 8 meters add 2 meters equals 20 meters. Number 4. Match the shape to its perimeter. So there's 2 ways, remember, you can work this out. You know that the parallel side, the opposite side of the rectangle is the same measurement as what has been given. So you could say 10 meters add 10 meters add 6 meters add 6 meters. And you could add all of those together. Or you could do 10 add 6 equals 16 meters. Multiply that by 2, which is 32 meters. Number 5. Alfie cycled 6 3/4 of a kilometre. Alfie cycled 6 3/4 kilometres. Asher says, I cycled 6,340 metres. So I travelled the same distance as Alfie. Is she correct? Well, she is not correct because I worked out 6 3/4 kilometres is 6,750 metres. So Asher did 6,340 metres. So 6,750 is more than 6,340. Okay then. So I hope you did really well on those 5 questions. Okay, we need to get our English. So you need to go and get your reading papers, please. And we're going to read all the way to the end of chapter 2. I promise I'll get it right. So you need to turn to page 18 because that's when we last finished, when I did it the correct way. Okay? If you want to read it out loud or you're going to follow me, but I want you to read along with me. Okay? So if we start at the word that is in capital letters and it's anybody. Okay, have you found that part? And we're going to read all the way to the end of chapter 2. Okay. Anybody would be better than Hiccup, sneered Snot-faced Snotlout. Even Fishlegs would be better than Hiccup. Fishlegs had a squint that made him as blind as a jellyfish and an allergy to reptiles. Silence, roared Gobber the Belch. The next boy to speak has limpets for lunch for the next 3 weeks. Why do you think those words are in capital letters? There was absolute silence immediately. Limpets are a bit like worms and a bit like snot and a lot less tasty than either. Hiccup will be in charge and that is in order, screamed Gobber, who didn't do noises quieter than screaming. He was a 6.5-foot giant with a mad glint in his one working eye, and a beard like exploding fireworks. Despite the freezing cold, he was wearing hairy shorts and a teeny weeny deerskin vest that showed off his lobster red skin and bulging muscles. He was holding a flaming torch in one gigantic fist. Hiccup will be leading you, although he is admittedly completely useless because Hiccup is the son of the chief, and that's the way things go with us Vikings. Where do you think you are? The Republic of Rome? Anyway, that is the least of your problems today. You are here to prove yourself as a Viking hero, and it is an ancient tradition of the hooligan tribe that you should, Gobber paused dramatically, first catch your dragon. Oh, suffering scallops, thought Hiccup. Our dragons are what set us apart, bellowed Gobber. Lesser humans train hawks to hunt for them, horses to carry them. It is only the Viking heroes who dare to tame the wildest, most dangerous creatures on earth. Gobber spat solemnly into the snow. There are 3 parts to the dragon initiation test. The first and most dangerous part is a test of your courage and skill at burglary. If you wish to enter the hairy hooligan tribe, you must first catch your dragon. And that is why, continued Gobber at full volume, I have brought you to this scenic spot. Take a look at Wild Dragon Cliff itself. The 10 boys tipped their heads backwards. The cliff loomed dizzyingly high above them, black and sinister. In summer you could barely even see the cliff as dragons of all shapes and sizes swarmed over it, snapping and biting and sending up a cacophony of noise that could be heard all over Burke. But in winter the dragons were hibernating and the cliff felt silent, except for the ominous low rumble of their snores. Hiccup could feel the vibrations through his sandals. Now, said Gobber, do you notice those 4 caves about halfway up the cliff, grouped roughly in the shape of a skull? The boys nodded. Inside the cave that would be the right eye of the skull is the dragon nursery, where there are, at this very moment, 3,000 young dragons having their last few weeks of winter sleep. Oh, muttered the boys excitedly. Hiccup swallowed hard. He happened to know considerably more about dragons than anybody else there. Ever since he was a small boy, he'd been fascinated by the creatures. He'd spent hour after long hour dragon watching in secret. Dragon spotters were thought to be geeks and nerds, hence the need for secrecy. And what Hiccup had learnt about dragons told him that walking into a cave with 3,000 dragons in it was an act of madness. No one else seemed too concerned, however. In a few minutes I want you to take one of those baskets and start climbing the cliff, commanded Gobber the Belch. Once you are at the cave entrance, you are on your own. I am too large to squeeze my way into the tunnels that lead to the dragon nursery. You will enter the cave quietly, and that means you too, water hog, unless you want to become the first spring meal for 3,000 hungry dragons. Ha 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 ha! Gobber laughed heartily at his little joke, then continued. Dragons this size are normally fairly harmless to man, but in these numbers they will set upon you like piranhas. There'd be nothing left of even a fatso like you, water hog, just a pile of bones. And your helmet. Ha 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 ha! So, you will walk quietly through the cave, and each boy will steal 1 sleeping dragon. Lift the dragon gently from the rock and place it in your basket. Any questions so far? Nobody had any questions. In the unlikely event that you do make the dragons, and you would have to be idiotically stupid to do so. Run like thunder for the entrance to the cave. Dragons do not like cold weather, and the snow will probably stop them in their tracks. Probably, thought Hiccup. Oh, well, that's reassuring. I suggest that you spend a little time choosing your dragon. It is important to get one the correct size. This will be the dragon that hunts fish for you and pulls down deer for you. You will catch the dragon that will carry you into battle later on when you are much older and a warrior of the tribe. But nonetheless, you want an impressive animal, so a rough guide would be choose the biggest creature that will fit into your basket. Don't linger for too long in there. Linger, thought Hiccup, in a cave full of 3,000 sleeping dragons? I need not tell you, Gobber continued cheerfully, that if you return to this spot without a dragon, it is hardly worth coming back at all. Anybody who fails this task will be put into immediate exile. The hairy hooligan tribe has no use for failures. Only the strong can belong. Unhappily, Hiccup looked around at the distant horizon. Nothing but snow and sea as far as the eye could see. Exile didn't look too promising either. Right, said Gobber briskly. Each boy take a basket to put their dragon in and we'll get going. The boys rushed to get their baskets, chattering happily and excitedly. I'm going to get one of those monstrous nightmare ones with the extra extendable claws. They're really scary, boasted Snotlout. Oh, shut up, Snotlout. You can't, said Speedy Fist. Only Hiccup can have a monstrous nightmare. You have to be the son of a chief. Hiccup's father was Stoic the Vast, the fearsome chief of the hairy hooligan tribe. Hiccup! Sneered Snotlout. If he's as useless at this as he is at Bashyball, we'll be lucky if he even gets one of the basic browns. The basic brown was the most common type of dragon, a serviceable beast, but without much glamour. Shut up and get in the line, you miserable tadpoles, yelled Gobber the Belch. The boys scrambled into their places, baskets on their back, and stood to attention. Gobber walked along the line, lighting the torch that each boy held in front of him from the great flare in his hand. In half an hour's time, you will be a Viking warrior with your faithful serpent at your side, or breakfasting with Woden in Valhalla with dragon's teeth in your bottom, screamed Gobber with horrible enthusiasm. Death or glory, yelled Gobber. Death or glory, yelled 8 boys back at him frantically. Death, thought Hiccup and Fishlegs sadly. Gobber paused dramatically with the horn to his lips. I think this could possibly be the worst moment of my life so far, thought Hiccup to himself as he waited for the blast of the horn. And if they shout much louder, we're going to wake up those dragons before we even start. Gobber blew the horn. Chapter 2. Inside the Dragon Nursery. You will probably guess by now that Hiccup was not your natural Viking hero. For a start, he didn't look like a hero. Somebody like Snotlout, for instance, was tall, muscly, covered in skeleton tattoos, and already had the beginning of a small moustache. This consisted of a few straggly yellow hairs clinging to his upper lip, and was deeply unpleasant to look at, but still impressively manly for a boy not yet 13. Hiccup was on the small side, and had the kind of face that was almost entirely unmemorable. He did have heroic hair, which was a very bright red and stood up vertically, however much you tried to wet it down with seawater. But nobody ever saw that because it was hidden under his helmet most of the time. You would never have picked Hiccup out of those 10 boys to be the hero of this story. Snotlout was good at everything and a natural leader. Dog's Breath was as tall as his father and could do amusing things like farting to the tune of the Burke national anthem. Hiccup was just absolutely average, the kind of unremarkable skinny freckled boy who was easy to overlook in a crowd. So when Gobber blew the horn and moved out of sight to find a comfortable rock to sit on and eat his mussel and tomato sandwich, Snotlout pushed Hiccup out of the way and took charge. "Okay, listen up, boys," he whispered in a menacing fashion. "I'm in charge, not the useless, and anybody who objects gets a knuckle sandwich from Dog's Breath the Durbrain." "Oh," grunted Dog's Breath, pounding his fists together in happy excitement. Dog's Breath was Snotlout's chief sidekick and a great big gorilla of a boy. "Bash him, Dog's Breath, to show what I mean." Dog's Breath was delighted to oblige. He gave Hiccup a shove that sent him sprawling head first into the snow, then ground his face in it. "Pay attention, Snotlout." The boys dragged their eyes away from Dog's Breath and Hiccup and paid attention. "Rope yourselves together. The best climber should go first." "Well, that's you, of course, Snotlout," said Fishlegs. "You're the best at everything, aren't you?" Snotlout looked at Fishlegs suspiciously. It was difficult to tell whether Fishlegs was laughing at him or not because of his squint. "That's right, Fishlegs," said Snotlout. "I am." And just in case he had been laughing at him, bash him, Dog's Breath. While Dog's Breath pushed Fishlegs down to join Hiccup in the snow, Snotlout bossily ordered everybody to rope to get themselves together. Hiccup and Fishlegs were the last to be tied on, just behind a flushed and triumphant Dog's Breath. "Oh, brilliant," muttered Fishlegs. "I'm about to enter a cave full of man-eating reptiles, tied up to 8 complete maniacs." "If we get to the cave," said Hiccup nervously, looking up at the sheer black cliff. Hiccup put the lighted torch between his teeth to leave his hands free and started climbing after the others. It was a perilous climb. The rocks were slippery with snow, and the other boys were thoroughly overexcited, making the ascent far too quickly. At one point, Clueless missed his footing and fell, luckily onto Dog's Breath, who caught him by the back of the trousers and heaved him back onto the rock again before he brought the whole lot of them down. When they finally made it to the mouth of the cave, Hiccup looked down briefly at the sea pounding the rocks way below and swallowed very hard. "Untie the ropes," ordered Snotlout, his eyes popping with excitement at the thought of the dangers to come. "Hiccup goes into the cave first because he is the son of the chief," he sneered, "and if any of the dragons are awake, he'll be the first to know about it. Once we're in the cave, it's every man for himself. Only the strong can belong." Okay, now what I would like you to do is I would like you to read the rest up to page, are you ready? To page 42 yourself. Pause the video now, and when you've finished and you are starting page 42, I will begin again. So, we're up to page 42 now. so they could hear a horrible snuffling as what sounded like the nose of a dragon entered the other end of the hall. Hiccup bunged a rock at it and squealed indignantly. They turned a corner and suddenly they could see light from outside at the end of the final tunnel. Oh, I wonder what's happened so far. What if you can tell me? They turned a corner and suddenly they could see light from outside at the end of the final tunnel. Fishlegs went first, but just as Hiccup was kneeling down to follow, a dragon pounced on him with a flap and a shriek. Hiccup hit it, and it fell back enough for him to crawl towards the light. Another dragon, or maybe the same one, sank its fangs into Hiccup's calf. He was so desperate to get out, he dragged the animal through with him. As soon as Hiccup's head and shoulders were through into the light, there was Gobber. He grabbed Hiccup under the armpits and hauled him out, dragons pouring after him. Jump! Yelled Gobber as he stunned a dragon with one blow of his mighty fist. What do you mean, jump? Hiccup hesitated as he looked down at the dizzying drop into the sea. No time to climb down, panted Gobber, banging a couple of dragons' heads together and bouncing 3 more off his gigantic belly. Jump! Hiccup closed his eyes and leapt off the cliff. As he plunged through the air, the dragon that was attached to his leg released its jaws with a squawk of alarm and flew off. Hiccup was travelling at such speed by the time he hit the water that it didn't feel like water at all, more like something hard and painful, and so cold that he nearly passed out. He spluttered to the surface, amazed to find that it didn't appear to be dead, and was immediately drenched by the gigantic splash of Gobber the Belch, landing a couple of feet away from him. Shrieking furiously, the dragons swarmed out of the cave and dive-bombed the floating Vikings. Hiccup pulled his helmet as far down as he could go. There were horrible scraping sounds as dragons' talons raked across the metal. What's a talon? Another one landed, hissing on the water right in front of Hiccup's face. It took off again with a screech when it felt how cold the sea was. The dragons didn't like flying through the snow, and with relief, Hiccup watched as they flew back to scream terrible dragon insults in Dragonese from the warmth of the cave entrance. Gobber started to pull the boys out of the sea and onto the rocks. Viking boys are strong swimmers, but it is difficult to keep afloat when you have a basket full of trapped, terrified dragons on your back. Hiccup was the last to be saved, just in time as the cold was beginning to put him to sleep. Well, at least that wasn't death, thought Hiccup of Gobber, as Gobber grabbed him by the neck to rescue him, nearly drowning him again in the process, but it certainly wasn't glory either. Okay then, so what I want you to do is I want you to, after I finish speaking, I want you to pause the video and complete this mini task. Okay? I want you to use your text and I want you to see if you can find a phrase, a group of words that suggests that dog's breath is tall. Okay? What words on there give you the information that dog's breath was tall? Then I want you to turn to page 31. Can you find a word in that on page 31 that means dangerous? Then I want you to find the word ominous. Read the sentence. What do you think the word means? And write the meaning in your book. And then see if you can put it in your own words, in your own sentence. And then, why did no one ever see Hiccup's hair? And who was responsible for the dragons waking up and how? Okay, so pause the video now. Okay then. So now you need to turn to the page where it tells you all about a gronkel. Okay? I want you to use the description and all of the information to draw your own gronkel, and then find the text that's told you, and I want you to label that your gronkel. Okay? So now I would like you to pause the video and complete that task. Okay, so now it's maths time. Okay, so we have been looking at equivalent fractions. Can you remember what the word equivalent means? Now, I know this is really tricky because we're not all in class and we're not doing lots of practical work, and it's all worksheet based, but you're doing so well. Okay, I would suggest if you haven't handed back your fraction mold that you get that out. If you have, that's my fault. I should have told you not to put it in your pack. Okay, but you can get those online if you want to use them later. Okay, so have a look at the diagrams. Okay, and I'll go through some of the questions with you. And then what I want you to do is I want to see if you can finish it off. So if we have a look at A, if you have a look at the top strip, it is divided into two equal parts and one part is coloured green. So a half is coloured, and then it's got how many, and the denominator, the bottom number of your fraction is 8. So I can see that there are 8 equal parts. How many is coloured yellow? And you need to make that your numerator. Okay? So have a look at B. Okay? Your top strip is done for you. It's a quarter because there's one part shaded out of 4 equal parts. Now, it's saying that it is equivalent to 2 what? So 2 parts are shaded in blue. How many equal parts are there all together? And that is your denominator. Then have a look and see if you can do C all by yourself. Pause the video and have a look to see if you can do it all by yourself. Okay then, so it's 3/4 and that's equivalent to 6 what? 8. Okay? Because the strip is divided equally into 8 equal parts. Okay then, let's have a look at this one. What do you notice if you shade half of the top strip and 2/4 of the second? So it's got the instructions there. What do you notice? Pause the video and have a think. Okay, what do you notice? That it is the same. It is equivalent. So 1/2 is equivalent to 2/4. Now, what I would like you to do is to find match the fraction to the fraction bar model. Okay, so which one is a half? Which one is a third? Which one is a quarter? And which one is an eighth? Let's see. Try and do the ones that you know first. Okay? Okay then. Let's see if we can go through the answers. Now, to help me, what I did first, what I know a half is, you can see which one I've penciled, I've matched for a half, because there are 6 equal parts and 3 have been shaded, and I know that 3 is half of 6. I then did 1/8 because there's 8 equal parts and 1 part has been shaded. So then I had a third and a quarter left. So I had a look at the top strip and I can see that there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts. And I know that 8 divided by the denominator 4 is 2. So 2 is a quarter of 8. So a quarter is, you can see where which one I've matched it to. Then I looked at the bottom one, the bottom bar model, and I could see that there was 6 equal parts and 2 shaded. Okay, so I can see that a third of 6 is 2 because 6 divided by 3 is 2. So 2 parts are shaded. Right, let's have a look at this one. The bar models represent fractions. Which is the odd one out? And why do you think this is? So, what I would do first is I would write the fraction down for each of those strips. I will help you start off with A. Okay, so A is divided into 3 equal parts, so my denominator is 3, and 2 are shaded, so it's 2/3. Okay, what about B, C, and D? Pause the video while you have a go and see if you can tell which one is the odd one out. If you still have or you have a copy of the fraction wall, once you've found the fractions, that will be quite easy for you. Or you could even get some strips of paper and fold them equally into that many parts and put them together below each other. Okay then, so let's go through the answer that I've come up with. So A, I said was 2/3. B, I said was 3/4. C was 4/6. And D is 6/9. So I've said the odd one out is 3/4, as 4/6 and 6/9 all equivalent to 2/3. And I've said for you to have a look on your fraction wall to have a look at that. Okay, and you will be able to see because 3, 6, 9, the denominators, but 4 is not in the 3 times table. Okay, so now you have got Monday's sheets. You write on the sheets and you see if you can complete those tasks as best as you can. Do not worry, have a go. Pause the video now. Okay then, so reading workshop. Okay, we're going to be looking this week especially at a new poem, and it's a nonsense poem, and it's called The Jabberwocky. Now, The Jabberwocky was written by Lewis Carroll, all to do with Alice Through the Looking Glass, okay, which is the second part of Alice in Wonderland, okay, and it's from those books. And as you can see on your sheet, if you have your sheet there, it's some really funny words, okay, and that's because it's a nonsense poem. Okay, so I will read it out. Okay, then you have got a little task to do before we go through it. okay, and work out what all those words mean, okay? So I will read it first. You might want to read it a couple of times yourselves afterwards. Okay, so it's The Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome rats outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird and shun, the frumious bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the manxome for he sought. So rested he by the Tumtum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumping back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, callooh, callay, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mum rats outgrabe. Oh, I'm sure you can read that a couple more times by yourselves, okay? You will be able to get some sort of gist of what that's about, okay? So I want you to have a look at the next part and we will see what your next task is. Okay, so you need to write today's date and the target, another prediction. So I don't need to go through this as much as I would. What do you think is happening? What in that poem? Okay, what do you think the poem is about? Okay, and about half a page I would like you to write. Okay, so pause the video until you're finished. Okay, so history. Okay, we're going to be learning all about the Romans in our history lessons this term, this term. Okay, what I would like you to do is I would like you to write today's date and the target. And our target is I can explain what I already know. Okay, then. Now, I'm going to be asking a lot of you today, so if you don't get it finished, that is fine. You can finish it off tomorrow. Okay? So I would like to put you to bullet point anything that you already know about the Romans. And then some more bullet points about what you would like to find out. Okay, so pause the video now. Okay, so we're going to start by the Romans and we're finding out all about what happened when the Romans invaded and their invasions. Now think about what the word invasion means. It means you're going to invade, so you're going to go and you're going to take over. Okay, so let's have a look at our target. Okay, so our target is I can explain the spread of the Roman Empire and recall key facts about the invasion of Britain. Okay, so let's move on. So, what do we already know? Do you know anything about the Roman Empire? What happened during the Roman invasions? And can you name any key people from the Roman era? Okay, then. So you might have talked about that to someone who's working with you, or you could have just thought about that. Okay, let's move on. So, what do you know? So, in 55 BC, so that's 55 years before Jesus was born, the Romans already ruled the country that we now know today as France. So, if you can see, France is labelled on our map. The Romans didn't call it France, they called it Gallia. and we're just across the English Channel. Okay, so the English Channel is the sea between Great Britain and France. And the Romans wanted to come to Britain. Okay? So, the first raid, and that was in 55 BC. The Roman general Julius Caesar came across the sea to Britain. He wanted to make Britain a part of the Roman Empire. He wanted to take over Great Britain and for it to be ruled by the Romans. He brought with him 2 Roman legions. Now, Roman legions is in green, and down at the bottom of the video, you can see it gives you an example. It gives you an example of what a Roman legion was. So there were around 5,000 soldiers in a Roman army legion. But he brought 2. So how many Roman soldiers did he have? The Celts were living in Britain at that time. So when the Romans were coming over, the Celts were already living in Great Britain. Do you think the Celts wanted to give up the country to the Romans? No. So they fought back bravely, and the Romans turned back and went back to France. Okay, they'd won some battles, but not all. They couldn't defeat the Celts. So let's have a look. Nearly 100 years later, so this is 43 AD, and this is the 3rd attempt. Okay, so nearly 100 years later, the Romans returned. Emperor Claudius was now in charge, and he was determined to make Britain part of the Roman Empire. He was not going to let the Celts win. He sent General Aulus Plautius and 4 legions of soldiers. Remember how many were in a legion? Okay, so he had 4 legions of soldiers, plus about the same number of auxiliary soldiers. They were split into 3 divisions. Now, an auxiliary soldier, you've got a definition there at the bottom, were people recruited from non-Roman tribes, okay, to support the army, okay, to help the army. Many Celtic tribes realised how strong this Roman army was and made deals to keep the peace. They agreed to obey Roman laws and pay taxes. In return, they were allowed to keep their kingdoms. Okay then, so now you have some text that tells you all about the Roman invasions, and you have some questions as well in your pack. Okay, and you can see a picture of that on there. What I would like you to do is read and see if you can answer the questions. Okay? Try your hardest. If you can't do it all, that is fine. You can do some tomorrow. Okay? Brilliant. Have a good go. If you have any problems, you can email me again, or even email me all of your good work. And I know some people didn't know how to email. You take a photograph of your work and then attach it to your email, and to attach, it's got a paperclip symbol. Okay? I think you're all absolutely brilliant, and you're doing so well. Okay? So once you finish your work, have a good go, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.